BodyBags, where horror lies.
Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe with week 509 here at BodyBags. Kind of feel like I'm about to do one of my Italy's Holocaust videos because we are talking Italy, we are talking, well, a bit of a Holocaust. We're talking Andrea Bianchi's Burial Ground from 1981. It is theme week. It is International Horror Volume 1. We're all over the place, man. I went and took a look, see a couple seconds ago, I think we're hitting France and Spain and Scotland, Japan, South Korea, just to name a few. Of course, you know me. You know what I do for a living. Italy, of course. So this is an interesting, I bought this not that long ago, actually. Picked it up for 15 and change. I just went with the standard DVD. From Severin, I haven't seen this movie, literally have not seen this movie since I rented on VHS back in the day. Like, really back in the day. Like when there were video stores with VHS tapes. And so I've been holding this. I didn't open it until just yesterday evening, in fact. Because I have some very specific, concrete, not many, a memory or two of this film, seeing it as a kid, which now, seeing it now, I wonder if I should have seen it as young as I saw it. But there's memories. Isn't it funny? Like, if you're around my age, or even close, and you remember going to the video store and getting VHS tapes, and you have certain select memories of how some things went down, and then you revisit it decades later, and you're like, that's not how I recall it going down, and you wonder, how are these memories made, and how are they locked in? And there is a scene in particular here, do my best to remember, but synopsis for, now you remember, Fulci gets us kicked off in 79 with Zombie 2, right, as it's marketed, because Romero's Dawn is marketed as zombie in Italy throughout Europe. And so, it starts the zombie craze, and Bianchi's film is probably right there in the thick of it, right, of a whole ton of Italian splatter, guts and gore type zombie related stuff. And it's weird that this just now got into my collection, that I would not have. I've seen it before. I've seen it out in the wild, real cheap. And for whatever reason, I don't know, just pass by it. But looking at Jim Harper's Italian horror, as a little reference guide for Italian horror films from 79 to 94, it's a good synopsis, really. One of the better ones. An archaeologist excavating a tomb somewhere in the Italian countryside manages to awaken a troop of ancient zombies who tear the scholar apart. Meanwhile, a group of his friends gather at his villa, unaware that the zombies are moving closer. There's a little bit more you can say, but really that's pretty much it. The movie really does not, This movie shines in its level of gore first, and I would say secondary, its zombie makeup. Now, you got Gino De Rossi, who worked for Giordano De Rossi, of course, with Fulci. A little bit more money, which is weird to say about Fulci. A little bit more money, probably a little bit more time and attention to some detail. And of course, zombie is maybe the most magnificent representation of what my zombie ought to look like. These zombies here aren't that far down the ladder. I mean, they're in my neck of the woods of how zombies ought to look. Now, it's not perfect. It's flawed a bit. You can see the mistakes, or you can see where they went full application and then stepped back in terms of a zombie. But the score also, too, works pretty well as a helpmate to the gothic, almost Lovecraftian notion of people, and this Fulci did to perfection, people being so horrified in the moment that they can't move. right? They're sort of locked in place, which I imagine can happen easily. But, you know, sometimes if not done well, we can laugh at it. It's kind of goofy. And this one kind of does get goofy. The writing is extremely bare bones. And I would say the weakest part of this whole movie probably is the actors who are cast, including a mother-son relationship, which I will not get into. It is, look, if you're not into some like really weird stuff and that sort of weird stuff, you know, this movie might not be for you. But if you're already into Italian genre cinema, especially movies of the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and maybe it's like me, you haven't checked it out since you were 16, 17. It's, you know, it's pretty much that. Tons of gore, some gothic, some not bad cinematography from the guy who would do the special effects camera work on Tentacles in 77, which is, so I mean, you do have some good guys. The writer of Nightmare City, although he's not asked to do a whole lot here, but the setup is, it's simple and straightforward enough. And I'll say the most interesting aspect of it for me in terms of the setup is the professor, the archaeologist, who is digging into some old Etruscan, you know, old Italian, Etruscan lore, I guess, in terms of his digging into this one crypt. You don't really know what he's after. You don't know. I even ran it with subtitles and everything. It just didn't help. You're not sure what he's digging into. A little bit later on, I think one of the guests makes the mention of magic. So you know this guy was probably into some things he shouldn't have been. And I wish that part would have been worked out just a little bit better. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit more, because for the longest time I'm thinking to myself, dude, what is this guy into? What is he doing? And he imaginatively gets himself in deeper than he ought to, and does suffer the fate that will come to the others who, not knowing what they're walking into. And it doesn't. That's another one thing, man. If you want your movies to start fast, this starts pretty fast. I mean, it's not long before the zombies are, and it is a siege film, right? The zombies are coming in quick, and the guests are spread out enough where you have the attacks, man, isolated attacks, and as they congregate into the villa and look for safety, and begin to fight back however they can. But this is also a movie that, man, just goes from bad to worse to maybe the most, potentially the grittiest last 5 minutes of a movie in terms of just, I won't really lay it out concretely, but it is a dark ending. And it could have been played out maybe just a little bit better, but I was a little surprised and taken back. Like, I'm trying to think, as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid, what did I think about the end? What did I think about, I mean, like, I can't really remember, right? So, but anyways, there's one scene in particular in this movie where, now my memory as a kid, all I remember is I thought this villa was more like a castle for some reason, which is not. It's just, it's an Italian villa, nice one at that. But I thought, the girl in question, I thought was at the very top of it. And somehow, I'm not sure how this would have worked, but it involved a scythe, a very long scythe. It involved zombies on the ground, and it involved somehow reaching the scythe up to where they were able to bring her head off. Now, the scene is a little bit better than I kind of remembered it. Revisiting, I was taken back. In fact, watched it a couple times. She's like the cleaning lady of sorts, right? Of the villa. And so she hears stuff or whatever. She kind of pulls herself out the window. She's not like at the top of this building structure. She looks out the window, and her hand is on the side of the wooden pane or whatever. And whatever those are called. And her hand is like this, right? And she's looking out. Well, you got this zombie down there who's got this like pike. And it's like, wham! That pike just nails her right in the hand, right to the thing. She can't move. She starts screaming. Then they reach up with this scythe, right slowly but surely, right over her neck, and boom. And then ultimately, a little bit later on, one of the other guests comes into the room, sees her, is so freaked out, doesn't know what to do, I guess, and just pushes the rest of her body out the window. Maybe he's thinking it buys them a little bit more time. You're not sure. You're not given really much of anything. You just see people do kind of things. But that it just struck me. Memories, right? Our memory's so locked in, and we think we remember something going down a certain way, and then we revisit it, and it's like, that's not quite the way it went down. But I kind of dig this. And that also, too, these zombies, man, these zombies use anything and everything at their disposal. Somehow in their rotted head of mush, they can somehow think up, I need a scythe here. We need a battling ram. We need to just get behind this like medieval style. And maybe that's part of the lore of how old these zombies are, which it does. This movie, in spite of its excesses, some of which I personally don't care for, and it's a reason probably why I just won't revisit this that often. Not like I do Zombie, man. I'm like, I can watch that anytime. But it does bring some interesting things to the table. Zombies using a battling ram to punch their way into this villa, or utilizing a power saw at one point in this film. It's just the ingenuity and the creepiness, the gothicness of just how these things, and I do think there is probably magic at the core of it, and it has something to do with who these zombies probably were at one point. It brings some interesting things, but it is at the heart of when Italian cinema was at its peak in terms of just pumping out the gore, pumping out zombies in this case. It was interesting revisit. So here in International Horror Volume 1, I thought I would revisit. You can get this for 15 and change on just DVD. The VHS was first put out by Vestron, funny enough. Surprised Vestron never got into the game of reclaiming the rights and putting this out as part of their new line. You can find the VHS for like $20, an old rare copy on eBay. They go up to $35 or whatever for better copies. I would never spend that kind of money on a VHS. I just happen to look for fun. But here we are, week 509. Andrea, Bianchi, some high-level zombie gore. I'm trying to think, I don't really think there's much more to say about this. Not much of a story, but the one girl gets her. Why do we have a bear trap on the grounds of a villa estate? I'm not sure, but one girl, poor girl, gets her leg caught into one, and that could have actually worked out to be a much more horrifying scene, and it didn't. And so it's interesting to see where he decided to go and where he didn't go. There was a few places I'm thinking, man, if Fulci was behind the camera, I can't even imagine what this guy would have done. So Burial Ground, Nights of Terror. Well, named Zombie 3 Nights of Terror at one point. Of course, later on, we know in 88 we would get our official Zombie 3 compliments of both Fulci and Mattioli as a helpmate on that. Anyways, as always, here at BodyBags, man, when I end these things, it's always go Bills, and enjoy the rest of International Horror.